Last June, I won $100,000 and I paid off my parents' mortgage. And you might be asking, did you win the lottery? I wish. I participated in a hackathon. Is this a humble brag? Yeah, absolutely. How does this relate to my talk? Well, I hope throughout this conversation and this journey, we find out a little bit about that. But before we go any further, has anybody here watched Ted Lasso? There's a couple people that watched it. It's a great show. Are people here, like, where are we based out of? Europe? Raise your hand. Okay, so people in Europe actually watched Ted Lasso. North America, Canada. Excellent. Okay, well, you're at home. I don't know why you're not watching this. It's a great show. But this talk is an hour long. Last time I did it was 30 minutes. And so I'm trying to stretch it out. And I decided that we're going to watch some YouTube together. It's not long, don't worry. But yeah, here we go.
Mate, what do I need to win?
2 triple 20s and a bullseye.
Good luck. You know, Rupert, guys have underestimated me my entire life. And for years, I never understood why. It used to really bother me. But then one day, I was driving my little boy to school, and I saw this quote by Walt Whitman. It was painted on the wall there. It said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I like that. So I get back in my car, and I'm driving to work, and all of a sudden, it hits me. All them fellas that used to belittle me, not a single one of them were curious. You know, they thought they had everything all figured out, and so they judged everything, and they judged everyone. And I realized that they're underestimating me. Who I was had nothing to do with it. Because if they were curious, they would ask questions. You know? Questions like, have you played a lot of darts, Ted? Which I would have answered, yes, sir. Every Sunday afternoon at a sports bar with my father from age 10 until I was 16 when he passed away. Barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce. Be curious, not judgmental. And if I look back at my career and kind of like life decisions that I've made and the choices that I've made over my whole life, anytime this statement was true was the time that I feel like I learned the most. My name is Serge. I am a developer experience engineer at Sentry. And over the next, I hope an hour, but closer to 45 minutes probably, what we're gonna cover is kind of like reflections of times in my life where other people judged you, times where the industry judged the tools and the decisions that I've made. And most importantly, I think, to me personally, is like when I judge myself. I mean, we are in an industry where imposter syndrome is very prevalent. Who knows where things are going in the next few years? Are we going to have a job? Are we going to be out of it? But yeah, this is just a few things that I've thought about and come to terms with. And yeah, there's going to be some audience participation. So pull out your phones. Let's entertain this. And if anybody has a question at any point, let's not make this a lecture. Let's make this a conversation. So just raise your hand and ask. You might throw me off, and then it's going to take some time for me to get back on track, which is good. Does that sound good? We're all good here? Cool. So a little backstory about myself. I was born in the Ukraine, and in 2007, me and my dad, we migrated to Canada. Both my parents have PhDs in aerospace engineering. And the thing about that is when you move to a new country, they're like, well, it doesn't really matter. So you have to start from scratch. And so my dad went to university. He got his master's, did a bunch of stuff. But throughout the first couple of years, especially at the time where I started going to university, he was in and out of jobs, and I had taken out a loan for my student debt first year. And after doing that first year, I realized that, quite honestly, computer science was really hard in comparison to high school math. But the other thing that was happening was I was seeing all these startups get built, like Uber and Airbnb. And the things that I was learning in university didn't really spark my curiosity as much as the things that were happening outside of it. And so I decided to, this is the excuse that I give myself in the head, to not take up any more debt. And for some silly reason, I thought I had enough conviction that I can learn how to do these things on my own. And at first, it started, even before 2015, was working at a marketing agency doing WordPress development and, doing some templates, but I did learn a little bit of PHP. And then around the time of 2014, my older brother was actually a developer relations person at a startup that was building a full stack framework. Are people here, do we have JavaScript developers? What languages do we surround ourselves with here? Just yell it out. C++, C++, Ruby Shop, TypeScript. Thank you. At least one person will know what I'm talking about. So Meteor.js with this full stack framework, and his role as a developer relations person was to get more developers to use that framework. And he did his job right. I learned this framework. And then in about 2015, I was looking for a job, and I found a posting from this person, Ryan, who was working on a startup that was helping build a platform for people that don't have a post-secondary degree. And that resonated a lot with me because I dropped out of university. And so we built this platform, and the idea was entry-level positions at companies start at customer service roles, and chances are you don't need a post-secondary degree for that, but a lot of companies put that as a check mark, as a requirement. Should have accounted for this. This is my work laptop, and I can't override the screensaver time on it for security reasons. They don't let you keep it unlocked for the whole time, so I'll have to go and juggle my keyboard every few minutes. I'll have to remember that. So the startup didn't go anywhere, but I learned quite a lot. And one thing that I learned is that companies still prefer someone put that they have a university degree because it's easier for them to qualify that person as an entry-level position, even though they don't really need it. And so companies judged candidates based on something that they weren't really curious about. And then I joined Shopify, and I went from regular software engineer to senior developer, senior front-end developer. Then I went and got curious about blockchains and cryptography and just the opportunities that this crypto world was providing. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then actually something that backfired a little bit with my path that doesn't seem linear, and I don't know how many people can relate to their career, but some people have up and to the right, whereas for me, it's been a roller coaster of curiosities and learnings along the way. One very big learning that kind of quote unquote backfired was I got an offer from a company in San Francisco to join as a software engineer. But because I decided to not finish university, the TN visa was denied at the border. And not going to talk about judgments and curiosities for the border control people. That's a whole separate talk. But turns out that like that was a moment in my life that I thought turned out a certain way that didn't feel right. But because of that, I also ended up meeting my wife, who's here and annoyingly supports me through a lot of things that I do, which are silly. But I ended up working at a few startups because I realized that big companies operate a certain way, and I just find that I'm more curious and I like to work in startups that are a little bit smaller. And then July 2025 is when this whole AI thing is happening. I'm not sure what the next however many, I never had a 5-year plan, but I don't know how many, like what the next 6 months looks like. And so I decided to try this new role, which is developer experience engineering. And yeah, we'll see where the future takes us. So back when I was working at Shopify, about a month into the job, I'm coming from a startup where there was only 3 of us. I was the only developer coming into this company that has 6,000 people. And for some reason, unbeknownst to me, I decided to send Toby Lutke, who's the CEO and founder of Shopify, a message on Slack. And I just say, hey, I just joined. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is the team that I'm on. Are there any things that you're thinking about that are related? Like, just like what are the things that you're thinking about as it comes to this? Didn't expect to hear back, but the way that I looked at it was, if I was in his position, I would have liked to get an understanding from a multitude of sources at the organization. I think like that's just the curious nature of me. And yeah. And so one day over lunch, I'm talking to a coworker and they're cleaning windows. Great. Talking to a coworker, and I tell him the story that I messaged Toby, and he goes, "Are you freaking crazy? Like, what? Like, I would have never thought of doing that. Like, there's no way. He's the CEO. He's over there. You're over here. There's so many people in between, and like, you're crazy." And I get it. There isn't a work chart. There's like common practices. There's a hierarchy. But like, I wasn't trying to skip levels or like get some like do something about it maliciously. I was just genuinely curious. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. And I was just curious what a person like that thinks about. And Toby responded, surprised, like I was very surprised. And he was kind and he was thoughtful. And then at some point, this is a screenshot of a pull request that I did. My GitHub username was 416Serge because I'm from Toronto, repping it hard. JML, who was the CTO at Shopify at the time, posted on Slack, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to do something." And I don't know if I was distracted. I don't know if I was just not doing my job. So I was just scrolling through Slack. And I was the first person to respond to that. And we ended up building this Easter egg into our career site because Shopify has this program called Dev Degree, which helps students to, like, it's a part-time you're in university, part-time you're interning at Shopify. And I actually taught React to first-year students of that program separately from all of this. And so when he told me that this was about this program and like we're celebrating the first cohort of graduating students, I was like, oh man, like this is cool. Some things that don't usually align kind of ended up falling into the right places because I was curious about it. And so I put up this PR and I thought it would be cool to have Toby and JML review it at the time when people still cared about who reviewed your pull requests and it wasn't just a bunch of bots doing it. to share with the students that like, hey, like this is a cool thing. And I'm not saying these were instrumental parts of my career, but curiosity did lead me to some interesting opportunities. And I guess the takeaway from this is whether it's a conversation with a coworker, a message to a CEO, or a random stranger on the internet, assume positive intent. I think, I don't know, people are probably here on Reddit, and sometimes I got an espresso machine recently, and I posted a problem that I had with my espresso, and a few people were like, shouldn't even be posting here until you read this manual or like get a PhD in espresso making. How dare you post it here? So yeah, I don't know about that, but when you do things like that, when you assume positive intent, expect nothing back, expect nothing in return. And if you ever are questioning whether or not you should do it, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. That was quoted by Wayne Gretzky, and then Michael Scott, and now obviously myself. Did I miss anything? Yeah, I think the only thing is if you treat people with respect, chances are they will reciprocate it. If they don't, you'll find out very quickly, and then that's also a very valuable lesson, and kind of move on from it. And then I joined Coinbase. And this is kind of going to be both Coinbase and the stablecoin startup that I worked at afterwards. But the reason I joined these companies was 2021 was an interesting time, and like, yes, there was a lot of speculation about which NFT to buy or which meme coin to get into. But to me, the technology that was powering it was more interesting. It's like borderless money movement that's very fast, that is very low price. When Ukraine got invaded and people were trying to figure out how to donate, one of the most impactful and valuable ways to do it was through these DAOs, which are decentralized. I forget what the meaning is actually, but it was a really good way to give people support right away. Of course, people try to scam it, and there's all these issues with crypto. But when I was working at Coinbase and at the startup, I was dealing with curiosities that kind of like piqued my interest. But anytime I went to a non-crypto conference or a non-crypto meetup, and I was talking to someone, and they asked, hey, what do you do? And I said that I work in crypto. You could feel the shift in the conversation. You could feel the interest walking out the door. Hopefully not like this talk. Nobody's gonna walk out the door, but it was tough. It was tough to talk about things that I was curious about, because at the end of the day, the things that I was dealing with were managing a backend service API and syncing it with this other API that is the blockchain, sure, but the way that you communicated was through 10-stack query, which is a TypeScript querying language. And like the loading states that I was learning about, the state machines that I had to learn to make sure that the animations of the experiences that I was building for these users were delightful, all those things were, to me, felt like similar interests that I could share with other people, but for some reason, it just like wasn't being reciprocated. I learned a lot, but nobody asked. They saw the label crypto bro, and they kind of already assumed that they knew everything they needed to know. And I can imagine maybe some of you have felt something similar. And maybe it's not about crypto necessarily, but maybe it's about the company that you work at, or the technology that you use, or how you got into tech in the first place. Like, I think these are things that, if anybody feels the same way, maybe raise your hand. There you go. Okay, a couple of people, yay. So the moment that you decide that you know what something is, you kind of stop learning about it. And that applies to people, to technology, to everything. Been talking about my experiences. I would really like to see if I can get something out of you guys. And if you don't mind entertaining me, there's a QR code here, and it's gonna go get you to an input field. It's all anonymous, but I would be curious to see something that you've been curious about, but you haven't explored yet. And like I said, this presentation is vibe coded, so this is actually the URL. And when you start putting stuff into the input box, it should start appearing here. Cloudflare, if you're watching, thank you for durable objects. Let's see. This is another way that I'm prolonging this conversation to be closer to the mark that I need it to be at. Okay. We got some things showing up. We got Rust, Flink, never heard of that. Curious. Golang, stargazing, Rust. There we go. So there's already 2 people in here, unless it's the same person that really wants to learn Rust, that posted it. I'm sorry this talk isn't about Rust. I feel like you were misled coming to this talk. Security, Rust. Okay, good to know. Next talk will be about Rust. Funny story about Rust. I also was wanting to learning Rust, and I decided to build a Reddit CLI that was in Rust. And I build, when you say I build these days, I think it's very, did you really build it? But the way that I tried to approach it was asking Claude Code or Cursor, whoever I was talking to about it, was how, like, explain this to me. And I think we're gonna get into this in a bit, but the way that you interact and the way that you learn things these days is changing. And I'll stop talking because I'll throw myself off. Rust is the majority winner. That is insane. Okay. Perfect. Are there talks today about Rust? Because you really need to go to those. And these might not apply to you because I didn't put C++ on here or Ruby, but these are the things that I've dealt with. JavaScript doesn't count. Front-end devs aren't real developers. If you use a framework, you don't understand the fundamentals. And the last one being real developers don't vibe code. Oh, vibe coding. We have come a long way over the past 2.5, 3 years, whenever ChatGPT came out. But some people call it vibe coding. Some people now call it context engineering, token maxing. What is the difference between a real developer and a vibe coder these days? I don't know. The lines are blurring. There's new tools coming out every single day. People are building their token factories, MCP, skills, all these things that a lot of people have a lot of opinions about. And if you look on Twitter or anywhere that you get your information from, I personally get overwhelmed, and I feel like I can't keep up with keeping up. And it sucks. And then you add to it This is from 2 days ago. Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, company that I used to work at. They're saying they reduced the size of their company by 14%. And this isn't the first one. We've seen Meta do it. We've seen Amazon do it. We've seen companies do this more and more. And they come up with different reasons for it. And probably some of them are more accurate than others. But this tweet said, AI is changing how we work. And that is scary. If you read, I don't know if it's in this part of the tweet or not, but he's talking about how managers can't be strictly managers anymore. You have to be shipping code. And he's talking about how at Coinbase, they now have non-engineering teams shipping code to production. So it's like, who is the developer now? Is everyone here an engineer? Can we raise our hands if you're an engineer? Anyone here non-technical? Perfect. She's also shipping code to production. And so, remember that $100,000 that I talked about in the beginning? I almost didn't enter this hackathon because it said the ultimate hackathon for vibe coders. This is May of last year, and I don't think of myself as a vibe coder. I've done the engineering stuff. Yes, I'm using Cursor, and I'm using autocomplete, and I'm starting to use agents. And they announced this hackathon in the beginning of May, and I was working at a startup. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I was skeptical about it. And then something happened. I got let go. And they told me it's because AI is taking over my job. I'm kidding. Startup, they ran out of money, and I was the first one to go. But sometimes these things line up, and they end up forcing you into the things that you otherwise might have not done yourself. And so this hackathon ran for the month of June. And I decided, you know what? Let me see what it's like. I've never used Bolt, but it was built by people that built StackBlitz, which is these web containers that are tried and true, and I've used that a lot. And if I were to just judge it based on the things that people were talking about, it would have been really hard. Because on the one side, you have people that are like, I'm building my next 1 million ARR software here, buy my course, but also the startup is great and these tools are amazing. And on the other side, there is people that are like, this is garbage, I can't do anything with it. And most of the time, I don't know how you guys are finding these things. Why is this not full screen anymore? Oh, because we're still there. Okay. We'll keep it not full screen. Most of the time, the truth is somewhere in the middle. You have your AI doomers that are like, no, thank you. And you have the people that have the AI psychologists that are like token factories and everything is AI and all that. But until I tried it myself, I couldn't form an opinion about it. And I didn't know what I was either missing out on or what other people were dealing with. And again, I'm just a curious person by nature. And so, I decided to build this app. It's called Weight Coach. Terrible name in hindsight. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's not dwell on that. But the problem was simple. Not creative when it comes to cooking. I look inside my fridge, inside my pantry, my mind goes blank. And so I wanted something that I can input all of my inventory into, and let the lords of AI come up with things that I could eat, and do it as a meal plan. The things that I saw that were out there were these like Cal AI, which you take a photo of the food and it guesstimates how much calories you have. I didn't like that approach. I wanted it from like first principles of ingredients to meals. And I used this framework, and of course it was an up and down experience. I think there were times where it like removed my environment variables because, I don't know, it decided to. There were times where I don't know if it ran the migrations on the database or not. I didn't know what was happening. It was telling me that there's an error. The button that was like, please fix it, wasn't really doing anything. I was just like spinning in circles. And I understood some of the quirms and issues that some people have with software like that. But also the fact that I had this experience that was 10 years or 12 years of software engineering, I was able to kind of like figure out how to use it in a way that it was actually doing the things that I wanted it to do. And then I also looked into 11 Labs, which is this voice agent stuff, because when you're cooking, I don't want to be looking at a recipe list. So I wanted to build an agent that was like, that can tell me what the steps are, and if I need to substitute something for something, it would be able to do that with the agent tools. The way that I take hackathons on is it's an opportunity to learn something new and try out new technology. And also, like, along the way, I decided that I want to document this experience of me interacting with this technology. Not because I want to be famous on YouTube or become the next whoever, Primogene or Theo, but because I find that I learn the things better when I'm able to explain them correctly. And the only way you can force yourself to do that is sit down and try to record a video of you talking about the technology you're interested in. Or do this thing that I'm doing, which is talking about experiences, which is a lot harder than I think talking about technology. But yeah, I recorded a series of 12 videos of the things that I found that were really helpful, the things that I found that were breaking. And the purpose is just like, for myself, if I were to go back in the time machine, what content would I want to have in front of me to help me succeed in the things that I'm doing? And all it takes is one person to comment and be like, wow, okay, thank you. This was very helpful. I'm happy in that case. And so there was 128,000 participants, 9,575 projects submitted, and the day of the announcement comes. I'm sitting at home, and second place gets announced, and there's my little face there, and I don't know, it's pretty unexpected. Cried a lot, because my first thought was, I can help my parents with their mortgage. They gave me so much to be able to be here in Canada and sacrifice so much. That was my first thought, and made me very happy. And had I not been curious about this technology, I wouldn't have been able to have that emotion and have that feeling. And yeah, the other part, or the other instance of something like this, was that Easter egg that I did with JML, who was the CTO at Shopify. He later left, and then he started his own company, or he was building his own application called C People. And because I got to interact with him, I started following him on Twitter, and then he posted that he was looking for a designer for the things that he's working on, and I reached out. And I was like, hey, I know you're looking for a designer, but if you ever need those designs to be built, holla at your boy. And because he remembered that interaction happened in the past, I think that gave him an opportunity to be like, cool, I already kind of know this person. It's hard to stand out these days on anywhere if you're looking for a new job. And so like that opportunity created itself because of the curiosity that I had in the past. And this is a person that was a CTO of a company of 1,000 developers. Don't think he was writing code at the time. And to watch this person vibe code this application, this native mobile application that later got featured by the App Store, and kind of the approach that he was taking to it, I was like very inspired by people that you think are at the end of their career and they've done learning everything that they need to learn. But here they are learning something completely new and applying the knowledge that they have in the past to this new paradigm. And so it's not about giving up control. It's about knowing where you spend it. And I think that's kind of like what I saw there. And if we were to take a step back, whether you're experienced or you're just starting out, I don't know, people with less than 2 years of experience, raise your hand. Perfect. There's people that are learning. And there's people that have been here for a while. And those experienced people, be curious about the new tools. Don't just write something off because you saw someone form an opinion about it on Twitter, or the demo didn't look delightful enough, or it was overhyped. Try new things. I know that it helped me in the past. And yeah, just get your hands dirty. And if you're new and you have this output machine that creates so many things, but if you don't know what it's doing, it's going to be challenging to later debug it, because things break all the time, and we see that more than ever now. I don't know, GitHub has their 5 nines of uptime, which is 89.999, which isn't great. And it is because of all of these token machines. Just like the scale that GitHub is dealing with right now because of these AI tools is unprecedented. And if you're new, it's really easy to feel like a lot of the output that you're creating is actual value, but slow down, take a step back, figure out and understand what are some of the things that are like important in the code that is being output. The fundamentals aren't old news just because a tool is skipping past them for you. And just to reiterate on that point of standing out, people that are experienced might not be looking for new roles, but maybe you are thinking about starting something new in a whole different category, in a whole different, I don't know, learning Rust and becoming a Rust engineer. I do think that showing how you work in the form of video is helpful for people that are curious about you as a candidate or as a new coworker or whatever. And in the age of AI-generated resumes being sent to thousands of companies, with thousands of companies using AI tooling to figure out if those resumes match the criteria that they're looking for, showing how you actually work, I think, is helpful to stand out. And the other thing that is interesting, I think, these days is, I don't know if you're familiar with Mario Zechner. Has anybody here heard of Pi, the coding agent? Has anybody here heard of OpenClaw? So OpenClaw is powered by this primitive called Pi coding agent, which is a very, very simple harness. It only has 4 tool calls, very minimal. This person is very interesting to follow. They have some very good ideas about this whole AI. He built an AI coding agent that helps create thousands and thousands of issues and pull requests that are just complete slop. But he's the same person that says, slow down, understand what you're doing, and don't chase this high of output. And so he had the suite where people who like sharing agent traces, he's publishing his on Hugging Face. And this is something that I was thinking about because when I was learning how to code, or just general, I would be in the office and there would be a very senior engineer or someone next to me, and I would be learning by osmosis. osmosis. I would look at the code that they've wrote. I would look at how they reviewed PRs. And that's how I would try to figure out how I can be better myself. And now I think the abstraction is moving up a layer, and I'm still curious about how really good developers, engineers interact with these new tools that we have. And so like the idea of looking at PRs is not as important these days as the ability to look at other people's traces. And I was talking to someone and they're like, don't look at my traces. No, it's too embarrassing. And if I'm being honest, some of the stuff that I write to these agents shouldn't see the light of day. But I do think there's something there in terms of understanding how other people are interacting with the code before you judge the output. The worst, some of the things that are happening that I see are you'll put up a PR, and the first question that a developer asks is, was this AI generated? And that already puts them in a mindset of, this person didn't care about this work, and I am not gonna spend my time reviewing this work because it was AI generated. This happened literally a couple months ago to me. I was working on our SDK at Sentry, and I spent 6 hours trying to debug a situation that was happening in a Dino runtime. The details aren't as important as the fact that this AI tool ended up creating the PR for me. And the description of it was very specific to the edge case that I was trying to deal with, not looking at it from a bigger picture. And so when you look, as a developer, you look at that PR and you're like, I don't think the AI understands everything. But it doesn't have the context of like, hey, here's this 6-hour conversation that I had with this AI, and that's where the details of how I approached the situation were. That's a lesson learned. And it doesn't mean that like everybody needs to read transcripts of your interactions with AI, but I think there's something there where like, that's the new way that we learn how to use these tools. And yeah, be curious, not judgmental. How's everyone doing? What's up? Good. Why is there an up poster on my screen? This is one of my favorite movies, but the way that I watched it for the first time was a little bit interesting. I'm 13 years old. We moved to Canada. I'm in grade 8. And I get placed into a group of people that the teacher decided that I'm a part of. And it's an opportunity for me to make friends, and I don't really know English that well, but from the way that I remember it, we decided to go to the movies. And I show up to the movies, I buy my ticket, and I wait, and nobody shows up. And I don't know if it was a prank that they're trying to play on me. I don't know if there was a miscommunication about times. But I'm standing there in the theater, 13 years old, with a ticket to the movie to go see Up. Don't know what it's about. And on the one hand, I was like, I don't want to sit in the movies by myself. What the hell? That's weird. But on the other hand, I just spent $12 or whatever on this ticket, and we didn't have a lot of money, and I wasn't about to just throw it out, and I was too scared to ask for a refund. And so this curiosity, I wasn't born with this curiosity. I wasn't a 13-year-old person that was like, let me go try this. But I think some fear, combination of fear and curiosity took over, and I went and watched Up, and I sat there and I cried. But something happened. I let go of that judgment of it being weird to go to the movies by yourself. And now I really enjoy doing that. And I enjoy going to the restaurant by myself and traveling, doing all these things that I previously thought were not something that I would do. And I have so much judgment of myself throughout my career. I'm a university dropout, the first one in my family. I was a startup co-founder and I was the only developer there and it failed, and I was the crypto bro. And now I'm not even writing code as the output that I'm being judged on. Because I'm not a developer, my impact isn't measured in pull requests and features shipped. It's a little bit fuzzier, it's different. It's how well I can understand the things that we're building and how well I can explain those things to other developers. And it's scary, it's challenging. I fall back into my comfort zone of, I see something broken, I can just put up a VR and fix it. But sometimes you have to do workshops and you have to do things like this, and it's still uncomfortable to do this. I don't know how I'm doing this. Thank you for listening, but yeah. But the thing that I keep coming back to is throughout my career and throughout the things that I've done, it wasn't about being a developer. It was about trying to solve problems. And at some point, I was solving problems with code, and now I'm solving different kinds of problems in a different layer of abstraction. And every time I stopped thinking about like, what does a real developer do? Like, what's the career progression? Like, what do I do here? And I just kind of like went down this curiosity path. I started feeling like I was actually getting better as a whole. And this label of being a developer is not really that important to me. And it's whether it's your tool or like your work, your tool choices or your career path, I think there's something to be learned here. And it's about whether you have a disagreement with someone or something, take a step back, slow down, and like understand the whys of why of the situation. Every time I've tried to shield away from uncomfortable situations, it got worse because I didn't approach it with curiosity. I kind of fell back into the discomfort and judgment. And like, I don't know, my wife wouldn't be here if she judged me from the way that I presented myself first time or before we met. And still every single day, I don't know how she has so much curiosity to put up with me, but thank you. Yeah. Be curious, not judgmental. And the last thing that I want to say was, I wouldn't be here without my friend Henri, and had he not been curious about this situation and this story to share, because I don't like talking about myself. I am introverted. I've done meetups where I talk about the technologies that I use, and I'm passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. But he saw that I won this hackathon. And the hackathon was also like, it's funny because I won, and then there was people that were like, you shouldn't have participated because you actually are a developer. And then others were like, why are you participating in that? Like, so it's weird. But he saw the situation and this thing that happened, and he's someone that I look up to because he's done conferences all over the world, and he's talked about web performance and a lot of these things that I look up to, and I would never consider myself being able to share the story. And so he approached me and he was like, hey, this is a great story. I think you have something here that can turn into something interesting that other people can learn from. And yeah, I just really appreciate that. And yeah, I think next time you dismiss something, just ask a question instead. And we are at a conference, and yeah, maybe ask someone you don't know what they've been curious about lately. Talk to him about Rust, because Educate him about Rust. This is a slide where the things that you put into that previous slide with the curiosities should have started popping back onto, but this was vibe coded, so didn't work. But that's it. Good luck.